Hello and welcome to Candid Conversations, the YouTube channel. Basically, it's now called Candid Conversations Zoomed In and Comments. That's the new name of the channel. Candid Conversations Zoomed In and Comments. So that's the new branding of the website. Today, basically, I'm doing a video on a really cool software piece that I use for amateur radio called Hamsphere. This is not an endorsement, it's not paid at all. So this is basically my hobby and the way I now do it. So you're going to see that in a few moments in a screen share format. So my lovely face will go away, and you'll see that, and basically be able to enjoy what I do as far as a hobby goes. Maybe we'll see you on Hamsphere at another point in time as you dive in if you wish to do so. So here we go with a screen recording and demonstration of Hamsphere on Candid Conversations, Zoomed In and Comments channel right here on YouTube. Hi there, welcome to Candid Conversations. This is a Candid Comment video edition, of course, on our YouTube channel. Candid Comments and rather Candid Conversations, Zoomed In and Comments is the new name of the channel. My name is Clip, and I'd like to welcome you to today's event, which is basically another comment. I'm still trying to get some interviews here on the site, but for now, we'll just keep doing this until we get something going here as far as an interview goes. I guess it's summer. Everybody wants to start getting into summer and not talking to people. I don't know. I could be wrong. Anyhow, let's jump in here and talk about what's on the screen here as I'm recording using Mobi. So, what we're doing here today is talking about a really cool software piece called Hamsphere. Hamsphere is a really neat application that emulates the amateur radio bands, or amateur or a radio, basically a shortwave radio, if you will. But in this vein, it is basically for communication rather than listening to shortwave stations, because as you can see, there's no shortwave stations that are being heard at the moment on this program. And so essentially, what it is it's like a chat program such as uh, WhatsApp or um, Google's chat programs or Messenger or whatever. But there's a little bit of a difference here. This particular program, what it does is it emulates the ham radio bands or the amateur radio spectrum. Now we could emulate any kind of radio spectrum if we really wanted to, and possibly even connect to real radios and listen to the world. But this basically is a tool that has AI built into it to basically emulate the spectrum that we're using, the ham radio bands. In this case, right now, I'm looking at what's known as the 6 meter band, sometimes referred to as the magic band. Although I think 10 meters is more the magic band. I could be wrong. I'll have to look that up. But I know 6 meters is a very interesting band. It is a what's known as a VHF band. It's also, if you were to go up in frequency, where TV is broadcast. Both video and audio for TV are broadcast in this wavelength from I think it's 54 megahertz for TV. But here, this is the section that would be emulating what we would see in amateur radio. So essentially, we're looking at that. There's also below here the 2 meter and 70 centimeter, which is supposed to be local, but in the Hamsphere world, it's international. I'll get to those in a little bit, and I'll also explain some of the other things. Now, if you did want to listen to some broadcasting, you could do that on this particular program. But what this program, and I will showcase that in a few moments. What this program really is about is about basically communication between ham radio operators and non-ham radio operators. The beauty of this is because it is strictly on the internet and on computers. Um, it is not in the real world. It's not in the wild, so to speak. So you're not actually on the ham radio bands. The purpose of this is basically to simulate as closely as possible what ham radio would sound like in the wild, in the real world. And it does it very well using the AI because of what it does is it follows this. This is space weather that you're looking at right on this side here, and this is the indication of what's happening in this the solar sphere, so to speak, how the sun is affecting us and what conditions are really like. So that's what's happening here. Um, you'll see that right now we're in the daytime, so some bands are really going to be good, some are going to be poor during the day, and at night, reverse. You can see there's a reverse there. And it gives you all these statistical information pieces about what's happening with the solar index. The solar number, the solar flux or SFI, all of that's in there. I'm not going to go into detail about this. It is not complicated, but certainly not, extremely lay. There's a lot of science behind this, and it can get complicated, by the way. But it's pretty straightforward. You want certain numbers to align to basically have what we call an opening, good conditions on the band. If certain numbers are higher or lower, it's not going to work out too well for you to communicate. And that's the same thing in the real world. So it's sort of emulating what the real world would look like. The truest difference between Hamsphere and real amateur radio is that anybody can get on this particular program. Anybody. Doesn't matter whether you are young or old, you can get on. And it doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you want to, you can get on this particular program and use it. I'm a ham radio operator. I've been licensed since 1982. When I first started out, I was VE2 GOG. Eventually, I became, what else did I take as a call sign? VE3 TJL when I was here in Ontario in the 80s and early 90s. I then went back into Quebec. Um, or was it? Yeah, no. Yeah, I went back to Quebec and I was VA2 UTC. I had a really nice call there. Everybody loved that call sign. And then I went out to Alberta where I was VE6, I believe TJL or TJC or forget the call sign offhand now. I'd have to look it up. And then I came back here to Ontario where I picked up this call sign. And UCT, by the way, stands for Universal Coordinated Time. I would have loved to get TC, but that's call's already taken. So I have VA3UCT. And this is a three-letter call sign. I'll explain that. VA means Canada, 3 is the province of Ontario. UCT basically is assigned to me. It denotes my location here in Hamilton, Ontario. So basically, if anybody were to look this call sign up, they would actually see my address, where I live. And there's a reason behind that. It's essentially it is to send cards, what we call QSL cards. And I'll show you those in a few moments as well. So essentially, this is the operating area here. This is the frequencies. What you see here is emulated here. So this is as I mentioned, the 6 meter band. We're listening at 50.150. So you see the marker here. The blue basically is the spectrum. What I'm looking at is this as the spectrum. There's another way of seeing it. Um, let's see here. Other info. Here we go. Come on, other tools. It is a bit slow. This program is actually newer. This is Hamsphere 5. It started off as Hamsphere, I believe, 3, and then it moved up. And this is the other spectrum analyzer. You can see this is a little different. I have a pad here. I'm still showing the sunspot number and the solar flux indication. How what's happening with sunspots. That's basically the number of sunspots, by the way. Um, Weather is over here, and this is the number of contacts I've had so far. Um, yeah, QSOs and so on. A little different from the old one, but anyways, you can see, and it also points where I am, what grid I'm in, and so on and so forth. Um, Again, it's another part of the hobby I'm not going to really go into, but a lot of people like grid hunting. So this is the main operating sector here. You can see this is showing some activity. What you saw in the other one, basically, you saw the lines coming down. I'll explain those in a moment. But here you see um, the spectrum, and this is what we call the noise floor. So this is the floor where we're seeing that. Up here, of course, is where all the other stations are either mostly listening or transmitting a signal, and you can see their call signs and so on. This gentleman here is a Russian, and he's bouncing all over the place, this guy. Um, this gentleman is a person from the United Kingdom, and so on and so forth. What's really cool about this app is it literally, as I mentioned, emulates a radio. So I can use different antennas. This is what we call omni antenna, meaning it hears all the directions. Or I can click on and select a beam if I wanted to. And this little thing here is a compass rose. It points, north, south, east, and west. And right now I'm pointing into what's known as, I'm pointing into Europe, essentially, or thereabouts. So all this is mostly Europe. Yeah, and then when you get down here, you're pointing into the United States, Canada, mostly East Coast, and so on. Up here, you're getting into South America, uh, Central America. You start to get into um, the Pacific region once you start coming up here on the East Coast, West Coast of the United States, and Japan and Indonesia and all these places, or most of the Asian countries, Australia, etc. Zero is over the pole, and that's over the South Pole, so up and down. So um, that's basically that compass rule. Now we have that here, so you can see I'm pointing at 65 degrees. So if I really wanted to truly be into Europe, I would just punch in the number 45, and now I'm into more into the central part of the European continent. The other thing too that we really rely on is something called propagation. So you can see this is what's happening on the band right now. On this band, not really. It's not really accurate here, but this is a propagation map right now. What it's showing me is what's known as the 40-meter band. So as you can see, most of the signals would be in North America. Might get into some South America and maybe some Australia and whatnot. But if I were to go to another band length, I would be able to see that. We can operate in a number of different modes. No AM, but we can operate in the USB or upper sideband, lower sideband, continuous wave, which is Morse code, FM, which is on these two here, and we can select channel up, channel down. Of course, we have box, which is basically hands-free microphone. I don't use it, and push to talk. I can actually have it so that when I push the talk, if the mic stays down, I don't have to keep holding the mouse to open it down. Here I can look up a call sign. So if I wanted to look up myself, which I will do just to demonstrate this, and I will see myself right here. It tells me who it is, what degree to point at. Zero. Well, yeah, because I'm pointing at myself, so it's 0 degrees. But it also shows my coordinates, what we call a QTH is, which is our location, um, the country in Hamsphere, and so on. Speaking of, let me talk about call signs and whatnot. This is a real ham radio call sign. You have to have the license to operate it. So anybody using this is really communicating with me. If they were to use it by themselves and go on the air, that's piracy. You cannot do that. It's a serious fine if you get caught. You can even do some jail time too. But The VA3UCT call sign is assigned strictly to me, but when somebody's talking to me, they're able to use it because they're communicating with me, and I'm using their call sign. So, for example, we'll say, let's say I'm talking to somebody in the United States. There's a guy I used to work a lot on the real ham radio bands K800. So whenever I'd work him, I'd say K800. This is VA3UCT. Name is Clip, and he would respond back with his name, and we'd exchange the report and so on. So that's basically how that kind of more or less works. When you start off, you're doing what's known as a CQ. In amateur radio, you point where you want to go. If you have a beam or you're using an omnidirectional, you select a frequency, and then you click on here and you say, "Hey, it's a frequency in use." It's a frequency in use. And then after that, what happens if you have a clear channel? You can start calling CQ, and you do something like this: CQ, CQ, CQ. Here's VA3UCT, CQ, CQ, CQ. VA3UCT calling CQ and listening for a call. Now, if somebody hears me, they will respond and answer me, and then we will exchange a report where I would be seeing their signal here on the meter, and we would say, well, you're 5 by 5 or 5 by 7 or 5 by 9, depending on what the meter shows, and they would give me the same report. Also, additionally, when I transmit, I would see my signal out. It's based on a 100-watt signal. There's no kilowatt uh, percentage here. It's just not used. Although in amateur radio, and again, in the real amateur radio world, I'm allowed up to, um, I, I believe, the last I looked, it's over 1,000 watts. I'm allowed to send a signal out at 1,000 watts, maybe higher now. But I'd have to look at the rules again. It's been a while since I've been on the air, so I'd have to refresh my memory on the rules as far as power. But I believe it's 1.5 or 2,000 watts in, 1,000 out for the signal. So that I could do. That's a lot of power, and it's also very expensive electricity wise. So you want to be aware of that. Um, so the only band that we're in this world looking at that allows a kilowatt is the 160 meter band, which is an extremely hard one to look and work on. It's very very hard, even in the real amateur radio world. It's one of the toughest bands to work. We call it the top band. The 160 meters is the uh, the absolute one of the lowest frequencies you can use. There is 60 meters, which is the next one, and 80 meters, and then 40 meters that we can use, 20 meters, and so on. It goes up. So here's a little factoid for you. When you are going um, at the lowest end, your antenna is bigger. When you're coming up to the higher end of frequencies, like for example here on the 50 megahertz band or 6 meters, the antennas are smaller. That's just the way it works because we measure frequency in meters. Uh, so we're saying this is the 6 meter band. You don't need a big antenna for 6 meters. You also for 6 meters you can still use a lot of power, but when you start getting up into the 2 meter and 70 centimeter range, because it's more direct of sight or site to site communications, your power is a lot lower. You wouldn't use 1,000 watts on on those two frequencies. Although I've heard people do it, particularly on a repeater. It's just going to overload things and create all kinds of problems. Don't want to do that. So on these bands, though, yeah, you could use the high power. So let's look around this particular app and see what's going on here. These lines are signals. So I'm going to drop down and click on one of them and let you hear it. And I'm going to try and see if I can get a better read on this. So this other beacon is a little more powerful, so I'm going to try it. This is the A4 for Australia. We transmit on 50.105 megahertz with an omnidirectional antenna and a power of 10 watts. This is beacon 43A+4 per Australia. All right,
It
so
transmits on 50.
that is called a beacon, and the beacon here is for propagation use. Now, I will be very straightforward with you. This particular emulator shows 6 meters is always open. That's not the case. 6 meters is more local than anything else. It's not really um, that open all the time. You really wouldn't be working in Australia every day. Same thing on these two bands, the 2 meter and 70 centimeters. It's strictly local here in the real world of ham radio. So if I were on 2 meters and 70 centimeters, I'd really be talking to people in Toronto, Burlington, maybe out as far as Brampton, London. I might get lucky and hit some repeaters out that way. Although most likely it's going to be Toronto, Hamilton, Burlington, and anything close to me in a circle of about 50 to 100 miles. Now, if I open up a bunch of repeaters and do what's known as daisy chaining with the repeaters, I might actually be able to get into the United States and also you never know. Even if I want to now, there are ways of using radios where you can communicate with people overseas using what's known as the D star method and other methods that basically connect to other radios outside of North America. But again, you're connecting to nodes and stuff like that. And again, that's just really in-depth stuff. I'm not going to go into details. I want to just keep strictly on this program. So locally is where you go. But in this world, you can talk to anybody anywhere in the world. So it's really more like I say, a WhatsApp or a messenger kind of feel here, as opposed to the real amateur radio. That's all three of these. Now, these bands are very close to what the real thing is. So this band pretty much, if I were to go on it, which is the 160 meter, I'm not going to hear anything. Maybe locally, I might hear somebody, 50, 100 miles at this point because the sun's up and the sun affects propagation because the ionosphere is lower. It's at night it goes up, and then you get the troposphere acting to basically bounce signal. So the signals will get further at night than in the day. So at this point, in this particular vein, we wouldn't be working anything other than local. Same thing here, and the same thing here. So 40 meters, pretty much that. Now you might get, like I said, you might hear something in Australia or something like that at this time of the day. As you can see, the noise floor, I'm going into the 40 meter band here. As you can see, the noise floor is going to increase. Also, I'm going to change the antenna here. So here on the 40 meter band, as you can see, there's not much in the way of a signal. And on this particular program, if you wanted to basically have some fun here, you could listen um, to some music if there was anybody on there. But right now, there's nothing there. So nobody's transmitting. This is the broadcast channel. So people who want to broadcast can do so. Now, here we go. There's some signal here. Not hearing much. This signal is pretty low actually. But that's somebody who's broadcasting music. There we go. It's popping up. Probably a delay on the server here. But that's the person who's basically using this to send a signal. So that's how it looks. Yeah, there's a bit of a delay here. You can see the meter went up and so on and so forth because we're on that channel listening to that station. So that's basically it. As far as what the BC is, or it's just broadcast channel. Everything is measured in what we call UTC, or Universal Time Coordinated, or Universal Coordinated Time. Right now we're showing 11:45 UCT, uh, and 7:45 local time. So this is the local time. That's what it is right now. We do this because it's easier. Um, it is basically based on the Greenwich system. The clock is in Greenwich, England, and it shows as 0. And it's right now it's 4 hours ahead. In the fall it'll be 5. But that's the way it works when we do the clocks forward and backwards, spring forward and fall back. Daylight savings time, etc., etc. So also we have on this particular radio a scan feature. So if I don't want to have to be going up and down all the bands. So I can use this scan feature to see if there's any signals here. Find out if there's somebody transmitting. Because as you can see down here, these are what are known as spots. So what's happening is that there's a radio station here that is basically possibly transmitting or just listening, but they've hit their PTT enough to basically get spotted on the server. So they might be transmitting. This is a U.S. station, um, another United States station as well. Some couple Americans here. What else do we got? As I mentioned, that Russian and so on and so forth. Now, one thing I want to point out about Hamsphere, as I mentioned, is that anybody can get on it and operate. So you do not have to be a licensed amateur radio operator. You can actually just be anybody off the street, and you can get on here. There is a subscription fee for the persons who want to go forward and do that. It is strictly up to you if you want to. You could get a free month trial, find out if this is something that you want to do, and I believe it's like $30 a year, and you can transmit to your heart's content. I do have a subscription. I really enjoy it. I play around with it quite a bit, although not as much as I used to. I still play around with it quite a bit. Let's see what I can do here. I'm gonna see if I can find one of these radio stations. Now, before I do that, I want to point out something that amateur radio operators and non-amateur radio operators are on this particular program. They have their call signs. Some will actually get a call sign here, as well as use their regular call sign. So I don't. I have my regular call sign, but there are ham radio operators that will also have a Hamsphere call sign. And a Hamsphere call sign simply is a number with the letters HS and then a set of numbers after it. So, for example, if I were to get a Hamsphere call sign, mine would be 9 for Canada, HS for Hamsphere, and then for my location, province and city all in one, it would be another set of numbers like 1129 or something to that effect. And that's basically how that would work. Every country has their own, and it works like that. The other nicest feature too is that you can log all your QSOs. Here's the spotting again that we are looking at. I can click on any one of these and find out where they are or see if they're actually transmitting on frequency. So I can do that. And this is my logbook, which is really cool. And I mentioned that we send out QSL cards. So these are cards that we send to people. And there's the guy that I talked to yesterday. I got him on the 6 meter band, and we had a quick chat. And that's the date, the frequency, the type of mode, the USB, the signal report, the time, his call sign, and my information up here. So that's what that looks like. And of course, he sent his information back to me in the form of his QSO cards, same sort of thing. and I can see his card on here and look at it. Other stations have sent me cards, so let me see if I can pull one up here. And here's one of those Hamsphere ones, Leo, and you can see him. He's, I believe, Spain. Where is he at? Yes, so you can see his call sign 19HS1474. It doesn't really actually. Oh, the Netherlands. There we are. He's in the Netherlands. So the Netherlands uses 19, Hamsphere, and then him. Okay, that's how that works. So you can see that idea right there. Let's see if I can see another one. Another Netherlands station. Somebody from the from this gentleman here, BP9. So he was using a remote station, and of course that is in Bermuda. There you go. So this fellow's transmitting from Bermuda, or was at the time. So you can see that. So this is basically how it will work. So let's see if I can demonstrate a signal. All right, so let's say I want to transmit now and actually work somebody. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up frequency here. One of my favorite bands is the 17 or 18 megahertz band, so that's a favorite of mine. And I'm going to select my antenna, and I'm going to point it into the European region. I'm going to look and see what the propagation is first. What kind of propagation am I going to get? That doesn't look too hot. Yeah, sure, I might be able to work some South Americans and so on, but that's not what we're aiming for. So I'm going to try and see if I can. 20 meters is better. I can get into Australia and Europe maybe. Let's see what we got on 30. Yeah, 30 looks pretty good too. By the way, that's all of Africa. Europe is here, but again, not very strong. Oh, that's not great either. So let's see what. 20 meters it is. So we'll go into what's known as the 20-meter band. It's probably the most stable of all the bands that you can use. And what I'm going to do is hold the frequency spectrum up. So we're now on what's known as the 20-meter band. And right now there's no signal, but I'm going to see if I can get somebody here. So I'm porting more or less into Europe. By the way, this is the headphone and microphone section. Volume, power, which is at 100. Microphone, which is pretty good. The RF gain, which is also part of volume, by the way. Box gain, which I can now use. These two things here measure, or not measure, but to do two things. This is the transmit and receive side for Morse code, which we're not using. So let's see what I get. I'm going to do a quick CQ and see if I get somebody. Because that is the frequency in use. CQ20, Victor Alpha 3 United Charlie Tango, VA3 UCT, calling CQ. The VA3 UCT, Victor Alpha 3 Uniform Charlie Tango, calling CQ 20 meter phone. VA3 UCT, Victor Alpha 3 United Charlie Tango, calling CQ and listening. So we'll see if somebody comes back. They're going to look and see my signal here. Of course, mine is really wide, but that's because I'm transmitting. So if somebody hears me and they say, hey, okay, I want to talk to this gentleman. If they have one of these beam antennas like I'm using right now, they will point towards me and work. Try one more and then close it off. CQ, 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 VA3 UCT, Victor Alpha 3, Uniform Charlie Tango, VA3 UCT, calling CQ and listening. Okay, so nothing is heard. So the other way I can try and find a station to actually work is to see if somebody's on here. Now I'm surprised that somebody's actually on this band. This is, as I mentioned, the hold on a second. Didn't work. Yeah, there seems to be nobody today. That's the one drawback, though, of Hamsphere. Not a whole lot of activity on this band. So I could even, just for the fun of it here, I can put myself into this band, and if I want to, I can do a scan. So I'm scanning right now. I'm looking to see if there's any signals. I doubt very much I'm going to catch anything. Okay, here we go. Here's a signal that it's going to stop on, and I am going to. So here we are. There's a signal right there. This is the 15-meter band. Let's see if I can get a hold of this guy. Now, QRZ means I'm listening. Who is there? QRZ, Victor Alpha 3, United, Charlie Tango. Victor Alpha 3, United, Charlie Tango. United Bravo 3, Lima Charlie Echo, Victor Alpha 3, United Charlie Tango, VA3 UCT. QSL, United Bravo 3, Lima Charlie Echo. This is Victor Alpha 3, United Charlie Tango. Victor Alpha number 3, United Charlie Tango. How copy, sir? So I'm going to put him in my log.
Victor Alpha 3 United Charlie Tango. Victor Alpha 3 United Charlie Tango. Is it correct, your call?
That is a QSL. Roger, Roger. Nick, you have the call sign correct. My name is Cliff. The QTH is Hamilton. You're not very strong. Not very, very strong, but you're definitely on the readable side. Definitely Q5 copy. Signal report 5 by 3, 53, 5 by 3. QSL?
Victor Alpha 3 United Charlie Tango. Uniform Bravo 3 Lima Charlie Echo. Thanks for call. 5 55 here, Filmo, 55, not strong. My name is Nick, November, Charlie, 98, November. That's in Victor, America Free, United Charlie Tango, Lincoln Bravo Free, Lima, Charlie Echo.
QSL, very good. Nice to meet you, Nick. And I'm recording this actually. I'm going to put it on YouTube just to demonstrate what Hamsphere is like because we do have a YouTube channel. But nice to see you and good signal 50, 53 to 55. You're coming up in strength. So the band is beginning to truly open up here. My QTH is Hamilton, and you have a good strong signal into our location. Not not very strong, but still strong enough. Like I said, 5x3 on the meter, 53 peaking 5.5 here in Hamilton, where it is. It's warm. It's definitely going to be warm again today too. UB3 LCE BA3 UCT.
America Free, United Charlie Tango, Lincoln Bravo Free, Lima, Charlie Echo. Quickly thanks for contact for Jessa. Best wishes for you and your family. Good luck with it. Jessa, in your book. 73. Bye bye.
73 is that's Bedonia, and I hope you have a good rest of your day from Victor Alpha 3 United Charlie Tango. That's going to end it here. So there you go. That's what a QSO looks like, what it sounds like in Hamsphere. This gentleman, of course, is Nick. He's in the Soviet Union, as you can see here. Um, where is he at? Well, it's not even the Soviet Union anymore. It's he's part of the Russian Federation, and he's in Smolensk. So there we go. I made a contact with a guy in Russia, and his frequency was pretty clear, and I was able to work him. So there you go. That's basically Hamsphere in a nutshell, with one QSO in the book. I will basically look for you in the next one. Hopefully, having a full on interview soon. If you want to actually be a part of the Candid Conversations YouTube channel here and you want to share your story, I'd love to hear from you. The email address for me is candidconversations@hotmail.com. That's Candid Conversations, one word, plural, conversations, at hotmail.com. Send me an email with your story and what it's about that you do, or your product or your business. I will definitely be happy to interview you and talk to you about what you do. Of course, if you have a subject that you want me to talk about here in Candid Comments video edition, please don't hesitate to do that. The new name, new branding of our channel is Candid Conversations Zoomed In and Video Comments. That's the new brand that we're putting out there. We changed this simply so that we separate it from the blog. The blog, of course, is still up and running, but we're doing written interviews there and video here with Zoomed In. So we have a little bit of a continuity thing, but at the same time, there's also no absolute connection anymore like there was before. It's going to be a little more separate. There might be some crossover, but generally speaking, I'm going to be looking to separate the two and basically have one as one, the other as the other. And also, don't forget, I do actually do a podcast. If you are interested in learning about call centers, why not hit me up on Anchor or Spotify or some of the other channels that are out there that you can listen. Uh, look for Tales from the Cube podcast. Tales from the Cube is all about what it's really like to work in a call center. I'm going to be putting up an episode either later today or tomorrow. At this point, though, it is the end of this. I am going to stop the recording and sharing of my screen, and I hope you have a really good rest of your day. Thank you very much for watching this rather long but interesting, I hope, video on Hamsphere. Take care. We'll see you in the next one.